Hamilton Mayor Fred Eisenberger responded to a broad daylight shooting in the middle of his city the way far too many politicians do. He called for an outright ban on guns, as if the criminals that were shooting up Maine and Victoria were somehow going to obey a gun ban. My next guest has been following issues like this for some time. John Lott Jr. is with the Crime Prevention Research Center. He joins me now from his offices. And John, this is just a knee-jerk reaction, but unfortunately it's one that can have wide-ranging consequences for law-abiding gun owners, isn't it?
Right. Well, I mean, it's a reaction that we've seen many times. People see a crime that occurs with guns, and they think the solution is merely to ban guns. The problem is that every place in the world, whether it's been a city or whether it's been a country or even what one would think would be the ideal experiment, an island nation that has no neighbors to go and blame for their guns, every single time you've seen guns banned, murder rates go up, and often by extremely large amounts. And the problem that you have is that basically the law-abiding good citizens obey the rules and not the criminals. And to the extent that you disarm law-abiding citizens relative to criminals, you actually make it easier for them to go and commit crimes.
In Canada, Mayor Eisenberger has no constitutional ability to ban guns, but he could make life difficult for gun owners. But he cites things like Japan as an example. I mean, he still wants to go ahead with this. He's been chastised for it. He's been told that constitutionally he can't do it, that it doesn't work, people citing real research. But he points to Japan and says Japan is the example that does work. Is he right on that?
Japan has had extremely low murder rates for as long as we have data on Japan. They basically have had extremely strict gun control regulations since the 1700s. So that's even before we had crime rates. What you really need to do is you need to compare a place before and after it's banned guns. And whenever we have that type of data, whenever you can look to see how did it change, because there's many reasons why murder rates can be high or low in different places. What you see every single time is that murder rates go up.
All right, Chicago long had strict gun laws, and I'm from Hamilton, and there were a lot of sports activities that went back and forth between Hamilton and Chicago, so people from that city, there's a lot of them that know. The Windy City as well. They had gun bans, very difficult to get access firearms, and yet what happened in Chicago?
Same thing that's happened every other place. You saw a huge increase in murder rates and violent crimes. In November of 1982, the ban went into effect. It was there up until just about 5 years ago or so. And what you saw is that Chicago's murder rate increased not only to what it had been for itself before, but it increased relative to the largest 10 cities and largest 50 cities in the United States. The same thing occurred with Washington, D.C. In both cases, in Chicago and Washington, D.C., their murder rates have been falling relative to other places right up until the time when the bans went into effect, and they stopped falling then and started increasing. In Washington, D.C., there's only 1 year after the ban went into effect where D.C.'s murder rate was as low as it was prior to the ban going into effect. And in Chicago, there was not a single year after their ban went into effect where the murder rate ever got close to being back to where it was before the ban went into effect.
So if the data doesn't support this, do you have an idea of why politicians react this way and say, you know what, I know the answer. Let's take away from the law-abiding that which we can't stop the criminals from getting.
Yeah, but just one comment first, and that is, we have this situation where obviously the people who had these guns were carrying them in downtown Hamilton were doing so illegally.
Yeah, there's no concealed carry permits in Hamilton.
Right. Well, in Canada, generally there's not, and so even Pierre Trudeau tried to get it after he left office, but was denied being able to get a concealed carry permit. So look. It seems strange to me that you have somebody having a gun where it's already banned for them to have it, and the reaction is, well, let's simply go and ban guns. Obviously, it didn't stop this individual who fired the gun in Hamilton recently from obtaining a gun and having it where it was illegal. But now we're talking about him wanting to ban it in people's homes. And, I'm not really clear where the logic comes in. But I think what happens is people see something bad that happens, and then their reaction is, if I merely take away the guns, then the bad things wouldn't have happened. The problem is that people don't see the benefits from having guns. They don't see the unintended consequences. It's kind of like, as an economist, I look at price controls. Prices go up. Lots of politicians say, well, the solution is merely to put a law in there that says the price can't go up. The problem is it doesn't work. Yes, anybody who's an economist really is going to say that price control doesn't stop people from competing against each other to go and get the gasoline or whatever it is that you're controlling. It merely changes how they do it. So people end up having to wait in long lines if you have gasoline rather than paying for it in cash. And, and the same type of thing is true with guns. They see the direct problem, just like in prices going up, that they want to stop, and they pass a law. But in this case, they don't realize that if it tends to be the relatively law-abiding citizens relative to the criminals who are disarmed, who are the ones who are more likely to obey this law, then disarming law-abiding citizens relative to criminals actually make it easier for the criminal to go and commit the crime.
Here's my worry, John, is that Mayor Eisenberger will find out that he can't control whether people are legally allowed to own guns inside Hamilton city limits. But what he will do is he'll follow the path of former Toronto Mayor David Miller and ban the gun ranges, ban the gun clubs, take those steps that make it the process of owning a firearm more difficult, so that you can't go to a shooting range in Flamborough. You've got to drive an extra half hour, 45 minutes to somewhere else and to be able to use your firearm. And that just makes people say, it'll make some people say, it's not worth it anymore. I'm fed up with the headaches.
Right. If you make something more costly, fewer people will do it. That's a bottom line rule of economics. I'm sure you're right. It will have that effect. Look, again, you have to ask yourself, who is this primarily going to be affecting? And that's not a ban that primarily affects law-abiding citizens who are more likely to obey it, but basically any of these rules that you're talking about are more likely to affect law-abiding citizens than criminals. And, to me, he has to keep, or others have to keep their eye on that ball there.
All right. His name is John Lott Jr. You know him from his book, More Guns, Less Crime. And, of course, he is with the Crime Prevention Research Center. Go to crimeresearch.org for more info. John, thanks as always for joining us.
Great talking to you, Brian. Thank you.